Hi, Julie Jones from SSB Performance, Smarter, Stronger, Better Mindset Training, here with this week's Mindset Made Simple Tip of the Week, brought to you by Game Day Sportswear, shopgameday.net. This week we're talking about, I believe in the benefits and power of mental performance training, but how do I get my athletes or those that I lead to buy into? Well, this weekend was amazing. I spent the whole weekend in New Orleans at the USASF and USA Cheer National Convention, and it was great. So we've got stunt and dance and cheer athletes and coaches, some of the best in the country. And those of you that know me well probably think I was quite the fish out of water at a stunt, dance, and cheer convention. But the truth of it is, I did take some tap dancing lessons as a kid. In fact, I took a lot of tap dancing lessons as a kid. And it was probably my best kept secret, except for my college teammates who at one point put signs all over campus. When I say all over campus, I mean all over campus. It said, Julie Jones in concert, tap dancing, playing the violin, naked, don't know where the no clothing thing came from. 5 o'clock, Friday night, Finley Hall. My answering machine, because we had an answering machine back in the day, was full of the funniest messages you've ever heard after those ads were placed all over campus. Very funny, Shannon and Donna, if you're watching this. But these athletes were amazing, and the coaches were awesome. What a great experience. Thanks to my friend Amy Barta Clark for inviting me to speak for the entire weekend. But one of the things that came up as I was teaching in one of my classes about the 3 power moves of peak performance was, how do we get our athletes to buy this stuff? Because we know that in any program, whether it's a physical program for skills and skills training, or even conditioning, or a mental performance plan, buy-in is essential. If nobody buys it, no matter how good it is, it's going to fall flat. So what do? We know this. We also know that athletes need to quickly be able to connect the tools or the theory or whatever, the science, whatever it is, to their performance. And if we don't do that quickly, then we are going to struggle getting them to be a part of what we're doing. But here's the truth of it. Not everyone's going to buy it. We just hope that the ones that make the biggest difference in some ways, whatever way that is, influence, performance, we hope that they buy it. But the truth of it is, if we go about it the right way, everybody will benefit from a mental performance training program. And here are some reasons why. There's no magic bullet. There's nothing that I can tell you that says, if you do this, every kid on your team is going to buy this. Or if you do this, everyone you lead is going to be a mental skills aficionado. Not true. We know this as well, that every skill that we learn is a skill. Skills are not born with. We're not born with skills. Skills are practice, and we get better at them. Mental performance skills are the same. So what do? How do we get started? One thing we need to remember is a one-size-fits-all approach does not work. A program that just says, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to do it, everyone's going to do it this way, it doesn't work that way. That's why every one of my individual athletes has a program crafted toward where they are and where they really want to go. Because all my athletes, somebody wants to go to the Olympics, somebody wants to play college soccer, somebody wants to play professional soccer, somebody wants to get over the yips. Everyone's a little bit different. So figuring out what each athlete's needs are, for me, is really important. Now, obviously, if we're working with a group, that might not be possible, but there are ways that we can figure out, just like watching skills. Some of the work that I do, including the 5-minute mindset and post-session workouts or homework with the teams that I work with, gives me a really good insight into where each athlete is in the buy-in and in the process and what their needs are. That's also why I talk to all of my coaches the week before or a couple days before we have a session to make sure that I'm hitting their specific nail on the head with the right hammer. And then giving lots of options. As my assistant Julie used to always say, you kids need options these days. But options, because we don't all think the same. And everyone's not going to like this tool as much as that, but one size fits all doesn't work. So meeting them where they are is important. The other thing that we need to realize as we implement a program is this, is that we're going to have early adopters, then we're going to have those wait and seers, and then we're going to have people who barely hang on. But we can affect all of them positively. Where do you fall in that early adopter, sort of wait and see, never going to be there person? Do you still have a flip phone? Or do you get the brand new iPhone as soon as it comes out? You're on that spectrum too, somewhere. So we need to understand that the people that we're working with, whether it's a physical or a mental skill, everyone is somewhere on that spectrum, and it's probably not exactly where you are. Early adopters might seem crazy to you. People who never get on, you probably think that they're like missing out. But somewhere, every person's on that scale, so we have to just keep plugging and plugging and plugging. And just like every other story, think of political stories that you're hearing right now, the more you hear something, the more it becomes true. So we've got to continue to give information, even to those people that are the holdouts. The early adopters are going to run with it. But let's use those early adopters. Those early adopters can really make a difference for us. They are the ones that can be the social proof of what it is that we're doing. Do you have anybody on your team that's used mental performance tools in the past? Any of your alumni or anybody that you've worked with? Because those people, those early adopters are the ones that have already bought it, can make a huge impact on those that are, the wait and seers or the other ones, the ones that are a little bit straggling behind. Comparison is the thief of all joy, but we can use comparison in good ways in this case. Do you see her? She uses this. Do you see him? This is what he does. Or this is what I do. Even more important, if they hear their peers buying in, you just got to have that kingpin. Who's your kingpin? Can you get the kingpin to make all the other all the other pins fall down? If you can search for that, that will help too. Speaking of social proof, and I've got a lot of it, you've got to go to ssbperformance.com/blog to get all of this, because I'm not going to read it all to you. But let's use superstars and science combined to have some social proof. I have 4 or 5 examples in the tip written. So if you want to see all the quotes and all the information, go there. But we can start with this. We're going to start with the most famous kid from Akron, LeBron James. I'm standing very close to where his 35,000 square foot house is, and not too far from where he went to high school. But Gardner and Moore in 2006 highlighted that mental performance programs incorporating mindfulness and relaxation techniques can reduce symptoms of anxiety and depression in athletes, and LeBron James uses these. Here's what he says. He says, mindfulness helps me stay in the moment and not get too high or too low. It's about finding a balance, staying focused on the task at hand, and not letting anything else interfere. He does not hide the fact that these are the tools that he uses. If you want more proof, you can go to the greatest tennis player ever, or the greatest female tennis player ever, Serena Williams. She talks about, she says, I have to believe in myself more than when nobody else does. That's what makes me a winner. I keep positive and work on my goals every day, no matter what happens. And that goes along with the science that Feltz and Lurgs found in 2001. Athletes who engage in self-talk and goal-setting interventions report higher levels of confidence and self-efficacy. I go on to talk about Michael Phelps. Of course, we know he uses visualization, and talk about 2 of the greats, Tom Brady and Drew Brees, and both of them had extensive mental performance programs that they followed. Drew Brees used mental rehearsal to get the answers to the test before the test. He used a 2-mile stretch driving to Caesars Superdome, where I was this weekend. 2 miles on his way, he would go through the 2-minute offense or whatever it was that they were working on that day. After practices, he would run through every scenario that might happen. And I've got research connected to all of those athletes in this tip if you want to use them to share with your athletes. But research connected to quotes, research connected to athletes. It's there. Use it if you want to implement a program. Because if it's good enough for the best, Simone Biles is in there as well, of course. If it's good enough for the best, then it's good enough for us. So, lastly, and maybe this should come first, but incorporating mental training tools into practice and making them sort of slipping them in can make them more normal and more ingestible and not something that seems like, oh my gosh, I'm broken, you have to fix me. That's not what mental performance training is. I get that a lot from parents. Hey, I really don't want my kid to do this because, she doesn't need therapy. This isn't therapy. First of all, I'm not a doctor, and most mental performance people are not. Sports psychologists aren't even doctors. So let's think about how we can get this in without people realizing it. Here's a couple things that we can do. Every kid or everyone you work with should have an ESPN highlight reel. They need to write down, and the reason writing it down, there's a reason for writing it down, because we can see our thoughts. We can evaluate our thoughts when they're written down. We can't evaluate our thoughts in our head. What did they do? What did they feel like? What were they saying? What was everyone around them doing? What was the environment? What did they hear? What did they smell? Get them to rehearse it when they write it down and then they think about it even. We're using that awesome part of our brain that turns our words and thoughts into pictures, and then we see it. And all of a sudden we're reliving it. And we're sneaking it in. We're not like trying to pull a trick on someone, but sometimes we've got to get kids to understand that these tools are not like drudgery. They're reliving our experience or managing our thoughts so that we can get better. Another way that we can do this is to simply change the way we ask questions. What could we do here? What's it look like? What should you feel like here? Let's take a minute and think about how we got here. What was your best time ever? What was your best play ever? What was your best meeting ever? What was your best presentation ever? Let's re-engineer it and think about what helped us get to that point. Because if we can figure out what helped us get to that point, then we can do it again. It may not be exactly the same, but success leaves clues. So getting them to restack their methods and pay attention to or become more self-aware, self-awareness is our superpower, become more self-aware of what makes them good. There we go. That's a mental performance tool. We are recreating, reliving, restructuring things maybe that didn't go as well we want, and putting in the things that do work. And then we get to go and do it again because we know what helps. People don't want to do this because they don't want to think more. It's not about thinking more. It's about thinking about it's about paying attention to how our thinking helps us or hurts us, because you're going to think whether you want to or not. But we've got to think in a way that moves us forward. So there are a lot of different ways that we can get buy-in. We can use our kingpin. We can use social proof from their peers or colleagues, or from the greatest, from Michael and Simone and Tom Brady and Drew Brees and Serena Williams, or whoever it is. Again, more research, more quotes in the tip. If you go to ssbperformance.com/blog, it's all there. But I am so happy that I got challenged with this question this weekend, because every time I get challenged with a question, I learn more too. And boy, did I learn a lot this weekend at the USASF, USA Cheer convention. I learned that coaches that put mental performance first, or put it on their agenda, I should say, are more successful. And thank you to everyone who leads these great organizations for making mental performance a priority. We know that everything starts with a thought. And if we can get those we lead to be more in tune with how their thinking affects their performance, then we all get better. Have a great week. I look forward to next week when we're going to talk about standards and how we can uphold standards and how we can get away from people thinking that we're old school when we have them. So have a great week. See you next week. Until then, enjoy summer.